The dust cloud rose behind Quinn Everett's horse like a ghost following him across the Colorado plains, and he knew, before he even saw her, that his life was about to change forever. It was the spring of 1878, and Quinn had been riding the circuit between ranches for the better part of 3 years, delivering messages and occasionally helping move cattle when the money was right. Las Animas sat behind him about 5 miles back, a dusty collection of wooden buildings that served as the seat of Bent County. He had planned to ride straight through to the Rocking H Ranch another 10 miles north, but something made him pull his horse to a stop when he crested the ridge overlooking a shallow valley dotted with wildflowers. The woman knelt among them, her dark brown hair falling loose down her back, her hands clasped together. Even from this distance, Quinn could see her lips moving. She wore a simple calico dress of faded blue, and her bonnet lay beside her in the grass. The wildflowers surrounded her in a riot of color, purple lupines and yellow sunflowers mixed with the delicate white blooms of prairie asters. The sight stopped his breath in his chest. Quinn had been raised by a God-fearing mother who died when he was 14, leaving him with memories of evening prayers and the smell of bread baking on Sundays. His father had been a harder man, more concerned with cattle prices than the condition of anyone's soul, and he had passed 2 years after Quinn's mother from a riding accident. Since then, Quinn had drifted, never putting down roots, never finding a reason to stop moving. But this woman, praying alone in a field of wildflowers, made something shift inside his chest. He dismounted slowly, not wanting to startle her, but his horse nickered softly. The woman's head came up immediately, her eyes wide. Even from 30 feet away, Quinn could see they were the color of new spring leaves, a vibrant green that seemed almost impossible. "I am sorry, madam," Quinn called out, removing his hat. "I did not mean to disturb you." The woman stood slowly, brushing off her skirt. She was younger than he had first thought, probably no more than 22 or 23. Her face was delicate but showed the signs of someone who had known hardship, a certain tightness around her mouth, a wariness in her eyes. "You startled me," she said. Her voice was soft but steady. "Most people take the main road." "I was cutting across to the Rocking H," Quinn explained, taking a few steps closer but keeping a respectful distance. "I saw you from the ridge and wanted to make sure you were all right. It is not always safe for a woman to be out here alone." "I am not far from home," she replied, gesturing to the east where Quinn could now see a small house, little more than a cabin really, nestled in a grove of cottonwood trees. "And I come here often. These flowers, they remind me that beauty can grow even in hard places." Quinn nodded slowly. "That is a fine way to think of things." They stood in silence for a moment, the wind moving through the grass and flowers around them. A meadowlark sang somewhere nearby, its melody bright and clear. "I am Quinn Everett," he said finally. "Flora Hartley," she responded. She did not offer her hand, but she did not retreat either. "You said you are headed to the Rocking H." "Yes, madam. I have a message for Mr. Henderson about some horses he wanted to look at down in Trinidad." Flora's expression shifted slightly, something like concern crossing her face. "You work for Marcus Henderson?" "Not directly. I carry messages, do odd jobs. Why do you ask?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "It is nothing. I should get back. My father will be wondering where I have gone." Quinn wanted to ask more, wanted to understand the shadow that had crossed her face at the mention of Henderson's name, but he could see she was already gathering her bonnet, preparing to leave. "Miss Hartley," he said quickly, "would it be acceptable if I rode by your place sometime? Just to check that you are well." She looked at him for a long moment, her green eyes searching his face. Quinn felt exposed under that gaze, as if she could see straight through to all his wandering, all his loneliness, all the years he had spent never finding a place to belong. "You can come by," she said finally, "but you should know that my father is not an easy man and we do not have much to offer visitors." "I do not need much," Quinn replied. Flora nodded once, then turned and began walking toward her home. Quinn watched her go, the way she moved through the wildflowers like she belonged there, like she was part of the landscape itself. He had the strangest sensation that he had just witnessed something sacred, that the image of her kneeling in prayer among those blooms would stay with him for the rest of his life. He remounted his horse and continued toward the rocking H, but his mind remained in that valley, with those flowers, with those green eyes. The rocking H was a prosperous spread, one of the largest in Bent County. Marcus Henderson had arrived in Colorado Territory during the gold rush, but had the good sense to realize that money could be made more reliably from beef than from dreams of precious metals. He was a thick-bodied man in his late 40s with iron-gray hair and the kind of confidence that came from never having wanted for anything. Quinn found him in the stable, examining a mare's foreleg. "Mr. Henderson," Quinn called, dismounting. Henderson looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Everett, you have news from Trinidad." "Yes, sir. Jake Morrison says the horses you wanted to see are ready for viewing whenever you can make the trip down. He said to tell you he has 3 geldings and 2 mares, all broken to saddle, and he will take 400 for the lot." Henderson grunted, releasing the mare's leg and straightening up. "400 is high. I will go down next week and see if they are worth half that." Quinn nodded. He knew his job was done, that he should collect his fee and ride on, but curiosity pushed him to speak again. "Sir, if you do not mind my asking, do you know a family named Hartley? They have a place a few miles south of here." Henderson's expression darkened immediately. "Hartley? Yes, I know them. Why? I met the daughter today, Flora. I was just curious." "You should not be curious about Flora Hartley," Henderson said sharply. "That is not a family you want to get involved with." "Why is that?" Henderson studied him for a moment, then sighed. "Daniel Hartley came here about 6 years ago with his daughter. He had some money then, bought that piece of land, tried to make a go of it. But he is a drunk, Everett. He lost most of what he had, and now he is barely scraping by. The girl does everything, tends what little garden they have, tries to keep him from drinking himself to death. It is a sad situation, but it is their situation." Quinn felt anger flare in his chest. Someone should help them. "Help them how?" Henderson asked. "Daniel Hartley does not want help. He wants whiskey and to be left alone. The girl is proud, too proud to accept charity. I offered to give her work here at the ranch last year, cooking or cleaning, but she refused. Said she needed to take care of her father." "What about her mother?" "Dead. Died on the journey here, I heard. Some kind of fever." Quinn absorbed this information, his heart aching for the young woman he had seen praying among the wildflowers. What kind of life did she have, caring for a father who had given up on everything, isolated out here with no one to help her? "Here is your payment," Henderson said, pressing coins into Quinn's hand. "And take my advice, stay away from the Hartleys. That girl might have a pretty face, but she comes with nothing but trouble." Quinn pocketed the money without counting it. "Thank you for the advice, sir." He rode away from the rocking H as the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He should have headed back to Las Animas, should have found a room at the boarding house and looked for his next job. Instead, he found himself riding south, back toward that valley of wildflowers. The Hartley cabin looked even smaller up close. It was built of rough-cut logs with a sod roof that sprouted tufts of grass. The door hung slightly crooked on its hinges, and one of the two windows had been repaired with oiled paper instead of glass. A small garden plot beside the house showed rows of vegetables struggling against the dry soil. A single cow grazed in a makeshift pen, and a few chickens scratched in the dirt near the door. Quinn dismounted and was about to call out when he heard voices from inside the cabin, one of them raised in anger. "You sold the plow," a man's voice, thick with drink. "That plow was the only decent tool we had left. We needed the money, Father." Flora's voice strained but controlled. "We needed flour and salt and medicine for your cough. Do not talk to me about my cough. I am fine. You are just like your mother, always worrying, always nagging." "Mother worried because she loved you, and she died worrying about you." The sound of something breaking made Quinn step forward instinctively. He knocked hard on the door. The voices inside went silent. After a moment, the door opened a crack and Flora's face appeared. Her left cheek was red, and Quinn felt his hands curl into fists. "Mr. Everett," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "What are you doing here?" "I was riding past and wanted to check on you, like I said I would." He kept his voice level, but his eyes were on that red mark. "Is everything all right?" "Everything is fine," she said quickly. "This is not a good time." "Flora, who is that?" The man appeared behind her, pushing the door open wider. Daniel Hartley was thin to the point of gauntness, his face covered in gray stubble, his eyes bloodshot. He reeked of cheap whiskey. "What do you want?" "I am Quinn Everett, sir. I met your daughter earlier today, and I just wanted to pay my respects." Daniel looked him up and down with suspicion. "Pay your respects? You courting my daughter?" "Father, please," Flora said, her voice tight with embarrassment. "I would like to get to know her better, yes, sir," Quinn said steadily, meeting Daniel's gaze. "If that would be acceptable to you and to her." Daniel laughed, a harsh sound. "Acceptable? Boy, do you see what we have here? You think you want to tie yourself to this? To a broken-down drunk and his daughter who is too stubborn to leave?" "Father, stop it," Flora said, her voice breaking. "I think," Quinn said carefully, "that your daughter is one of the finest women I have ever met, and I would be honored to spend time with her." Daniel stared at him for a long moment, then waved his hand dismissively. "Do what you want. Flora, I am going to lie down. Make me some coffee when I wake up." He stumbled away from the door, leaving Flora standing there with tears in her eyes. "You should not have come," she whispered. "Did he hit you?" Quinn asked quietly. She touched her cheek. "He did not mean to. He was gesturing and his hand connected with my face. It was an accident." "Flora, please just go," she said. "This is not your concern." "I would like it to be my concern," Quinn said. "I would like to help you." "Why?" She looked up at him, her green eyes swimming with tears. "You do not know me. You do not owe me anything." "When I saw you today," Quinn said slowly, trying to find the right words, "praying among those wildflowers, I felt something I have not felt in years. I felt hope. I felt like maybe God was showing me something I needed to see." A tear spilled down her cheek. "I do not need another person to take care of." "Maybe I need someone to take care of me," Quinn said softly. She shook her head, but she was smiling through her tears. "You are either the kindest man I have ever met or the most foolish." "Maybe both," Quinn admitted. "Will you let me come back tomorrow? Let me help you with the garden or the animals or whatever you need." Flora hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You can come back, but do not expect anything from me, Quinn Everett. I have nothing to give." "You are wrong about that," Quinn said. "You have already given me something. You have given me a reason to stop drifting." He tipped his hat to her and rode away before she could respond, but he carried the image of her surprised expression with him all the way back to Las Animas. True to his word, Quinn returned the next morning with a bag of supplies strapped to his horse. Flora was in the garden, pulling weeds from around the struggling tomato plants. She looked up when she heard him approach, shading her eyes against the morning sun. "You came back," she said. "I said I would." Quinn dismounted and held up the bag. "I brought some things: flour, sugar, coffee, some bacon, and some nails in case you need to make repairs." Flora stood slowly, wiping dirt from her hands onto her apron. "I cannot pay you for those things. I am not asking you to pay me. I am asking you to let me help." She studied him for a long moment, and Quinn could see her pride warring with her practicality. Finally, she nodded. "The roof leaks in 3 places. If you really want to help, you could patch it." "I can do that," Quinn said. They worked together through the morning. Quinn climbed onto the roof with the tar and nails Flora had stored in a lean-to, patching the holes while Flora continued working in the garden below. Daniel did not emerge from the cabin, though Quinn could hear him coughing occasionally. Around noon, Flora called up to him. "Come down and eat something." She had set out bread, cheese, and water on a rough wooden table outside the cabin. They sat together in the shade, eating in companionable silence for a while. "Tell me about yourself," Flora said finally. "Where are you from?" "Nebraska originally," Quinn replied. "My father had a ranch there, nothing fancy but decent. Both my parents died within 2 years of each other, and I sold the place. I have been moving around ever since." "You have brothers or sisters?" "No, it was just me. What about you?" Flora looked down at her hands. "I had a younger brother, Samuel. He died of cholera the same year as my mother. It was a hard journey west. My father had dreams of making something of himself, of giving us a better life. But after we lost them, he lost himself too." "I am sorry," Quinn said. "People always say that," Flora replied softly. "I am sorry, but being sorry does not change anything, does it? It does not bring them back. It does not make my father stop drinking. It does not make this land any less harsh." "No," Quinn agreed. "But it means something that people care, even if they cannot fix it." Flora looked at him, really looked at him, and Quinn saw something in her eyes shift. "You are different from most men I have met." "How so?" "Most men see a problem and either try to take charge of it or run away from it. You seem content to just be here, to help without expecting anything in return." Quinn set down his bread. "Maybe I am expecting something in return. Maybe I am expecting the chance to know you better." Color rose in Flora's cheeks, but she did not look away. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," Quinn said honestly. "What you think about when you are alone, what makes you laugh, what you pray for when you are kneeling in those wildflowers." Flora's breath caught. "I pray for strength," she said quietly. "I pray for patience with my father. I pray that maybe someday things will be different. And sometimes I pray for someone to see me, really see me, not just a poor girl with a drunk father." "I see you, Flora," Quinn said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "From the moment I saw you among those flowers, I have not been able to see anything else." She turned her hand over in his, her fingers threading through his. "This is too fast," she whispered. "We just met." "I know," Quinn said, "but sometimes fast is right, sometimes you just know." Before Flora could respond, the cabin door banged open and Daniel stumbled out. He looked worse in the daylight, his skin gray, his hands shaking. "Flora," he said, his voice rough. "I need you to ride into town. I need—" "No," Flora said, pulling her hand from Quinn's and standing up. "I am not buying you more whiskey, Father." "I was not going to ask for whiskey," Daniel said, though his eyes slid away guiltily. "I need more medicine for my cough." "The medicine does not work when you drown it in alcohol," Flora said, her voice weary. Daniel's face reddened. "Do not you take that tone with me, girl. I am still your father." "Then act like it," Flora said, and Quinn heard years of frustration and pain in those 4 words. Daniel raised his hand, and Quinn was on his feet immediately, stepping between them. "Mr. Hartley," he said firmly, You need to calm down." "Who are you to tell me what to do in my own home?" Daniel demanded. "I am someone who cares about your daughter," Quinn said. "And I am not going to stand by and watch you hurt her, whether you mean to or not." Daniel looked at Flora, then back at Quinn. Something in his expression crumbled, and he suddenly looked very old and very tired. "You think I do not know what I have become," he said, his voice breaking. "You think I do not know what I am doing to her. I killed my wife and my son with my ambitions, and now I am killing my daughter with my weakness." "Father," Flora said, her own voice breaking. "I loved them," Daniel continued, tears running down his face. "I loved your mother more than anything in this world. When she died, when Samuel died, something in me died too. The whiskey is the only thing that makes it quiet, the only thing that makes me forget." "But it is killing you," Flora said, going to him and taking his hands. "And it is breaking my heart to watch." Daniel pulled her into an embrace, and Quinn watched as father and daughter held each other, both crying. He felt like an intruder, but also like this was something important, something that needed to happen. Finally, Daniel pulled back and looked at Quinn. "You care about my daughter?" "Yes, sir, I do." "Then get her away from me," Daniel said. "Get her away from this place before I drag her down with me." "Father, no," Flora said. "I am not leaving you." "You should," Daniel said. "You should have left years ago." "I will not abandon you," Flora insisted. Daniel looked at Quinn again. "You seem like a decent man." "Are you?" "I try to be, sir." "Can you give her a better life than this?" "I can try," Quinn said. "But she would have to want that." "I am standing right here," Flora said sharply, "and I can make my own decisions." Daniel nodded slowly. "You can. You have been making your own decisions for years while I drowned in a bottle. But Flora, my darling girl, you deserve more than this. You deserve love and happiness and a life that is not spent watching your father waste away." "Then stop wasting away," Flora said desperately. "Stop drinking, get better, we can make this work." Daniel shook his head. "I have tried, Flora. God knows I have tried, but I am too weak." "Then I will be strong enough for both of us," Flora said. Quinn saw the determination in her face and felt his heart swell with admiration. She was fierce and loyal and stubborn, and he was falling in love with her more with every passing moment. "Let me help," he said. "Let me stay here, work the land with you, help take care of your father. Maybe together we can turn things around." Daniel and Flora both looked at him in surprise. "You would do that?" Daniel asked. "Why?" "Because I believe in second chances," Quinn said, "and because I believe in your daughter." Flora's eyes filled with tears again. "Quinn, you do not know what you are saying. You have your own life, your own work." "I have been looking for something worth staying for," Quinn said. "Maybe this is it." Over the next few weeks, Quinn became a fixture at the Hartley place. He moved into the lean-to, giving him a place to sleep while maintaining propriety. He spent his days working the land, repairing fences, tending the animals, doing everything he could to help Flora keep things running. At first, Daniel was suspicious and sullen, continuing to drink whenever he could get his hands on whiskey. But gradually, as he watched Quinn work tirelessly alongside his daughter, something began to shift. One morning, Quinn found Daniel outside trying to mend a harness. "Let me help you with that," Quinn offered. Daniel looked up, his eyes clearer than Quinn had seen them before. "I used to be good at this kind of work." "I believe you," Quinn said, sitting down beside him. They worked together in silence for a while, their hands moving in tandem to repair the worn leather. "I was not always like this," Daniel said finally. "When I was younger, I was strong. I built my own ranch in Missouri, raised cattle, provided for my family. I was proud of what I had accomplished." "What happened?" Quinn asked gently. "Pride," Daniel said simply. "I thought I could do better, make more money. I heard stories about opportunities in Colorado, about land for the taking, about fortunes to be made. My wife tried to tell me we had enough, that we should be grateful for what we had. But I did not listen. I convinced her that this would be better for the children, that we would have more to leave them. He paused, his hands stilling on the leather. Instead, I brought them out here to die. You could not have known about the cholera, Quinn said. No, but I pushed us too hard. We took routes we should not have taken, trying to save time. When Evelyn got sick, we were days from any town. Samuel caught it from her. I watched them both die because of my choices. Flora survived, Quinn pointed out, by luck, not by my planning. Daniel set down the harness and looked at Quinn directly. Why are you really here? What do you want with my daughter? I want to marry her, Quinn said honestly, if she will have me. Daniel's eyebrows rose. You have known her for less than a month. I know. But I also know that I have never felt this way about anyone. I wake up every morning grateful for the chance to see her, to work beside her, to hear her laugh on the rare occasions when she lets herself. I know that whatever time I have on this earth, I want to spend it making her happy. Daniel studied him for a long moment. She deserves someone who will stay, who will not run when things get hard. I am not going anywhere, Quinn said, even though being with her means dealing with me. Even then. Daniel nodded slowly. Then you have my blessing, for whatever that is worth. But you should know, she is not an easy woman. She is stubborn and proud, and she has walls around her heart that would take a strong man to break down. I am not trying to break down her walls, Quinn said. I am just trying to show her that it is safe to open the door. A small smile crossed Daniel's face, the first genuine one Quinn had seen from him. You are either very wise or very naive. Probably both, Quinn admitted. That evening after dinner, Quinn asked Flora to walk with him. They made their way to the valley of Wildflowers, which were even more vibrant now in the full bloom of late spring. The sun was setting, casting everything in golden light. This place is beautiful, Quinn said. It is my favorite place in the world, Flora replied. When everything else feels impossible, I come here and remember that there is still beauty in the world. Quinn took her hand. Flora, I need to tell you something. She looked up at him, her green eyes reflecting the sunset. What is it? I am falling in love with you, Quinn said simply. Actually, I am already in love with you. I have been since the moment I saw you praying here. And I know it is fast, and I know you might think I am crazy, but I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to marry you if you will have me. Flora's breath caught. Quinn, I cannot ask you to take on my life, my problems, my father. You are not asking. I am offering. I want all of it, Flora, the good and the hard. I want to build a life with you right here. I want to make this place thrive again, to give your father a reason to stay sober, to give you a reason to smile every day. Tears spilled down her cheeks. What if I cannot do it? What if I cannot be what you need? Quinn cupped her face gently. You already are everything I need. You are brave and kind and strong. You are faithful even when everything seems hopeless. You are beautiful inside and out. And I promise you, Flora Hartley, if you marry me, I will spend every day of my life trying to be worthy of you. You are already worthy, she whispered. I am falling in love with you too. I tried not to because I was scared, because everyone I have ever loved has left me one way or another. But you stayed. You kept coming back. You saw me at my worst, saw my life at its lowest, and you stayed anyway. I will always stay, Quinn promised. He leaned down and kissed her then, soft and sweet, with the wildflowers swaying around them and the sky turning pink and orange overhead. Flora kissed him back, her arms coming up to wrap around his neck, and Quinn felt complete in a way he had never experienced before. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Flora laughed, the sound full of joy. I cannot believe this is happening. Believe it, Quinn said, grinning. "You are stuck with me now." "I suppose there are worse fates," Flora teased, her eyes bright. They walked back to the cabin hand in hand, and when they told Daniel the news, the older man actually smiled. "I suppose I should give you a proper wedding," he said, "though I do not have much to offer." "We do not need much," Flora said. "Just the three of us and someone to say the words." "Actually," Quinn said, "I was thinking we could do it here in the Wildflower Valley. That place is sacred to both of us now." Flora's eyes lit up. "Really, really. We can invite people from town, make it a celebration, show everyone that good things can happen even in hard times." Over the next month, preparations were made. Daniel, motivated by his daughter's happiness and Quinn's steady presence, began drinking less. He was not perfect, and there were still days when he struggled, but he was trying, and that meant everything. Quinn rode into Las Animas and spoke with the circuit preacher, a kindly man named Reverend Thomas, who agreed to perform the ceremony. He also stopped by the general store and used most of his savings to buy fabric for Flora's wedding dress, which she sewed herself in the evenings by lamplight. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright. About 20 people from Las Animas made the ride out to the Hartley place, curious about the unusual venue and the cowboy who had decided to marry into the troubled Hartley family. Marcus Henderson was among them, looking skeptical but respectful. He pulled Quinn aside before the ceremony. "You are really going through with this?" "I am," Quinn said firmly. "You could do better, you know, find a woman without all this baggage." Quinn looked at Henderson steadily. "There is no one better than Flora, and what you call baggage I call family. We all have things we are carrying, Mr. Henderson. The question is whether we are willing to help each other carry them." Henderson grunted but did not argue further. "Well, good luck to you then. You will need it." The ceremony took place in the valley, with wildflowers blooming all around them. Flora wore her dress of cream-colored muslin, simple but beautiful, with flowers woven into her dark hair. She looked like something out of a dream, and Quinn felt his throat tighten with emotion as she walked toward him, her father beside her. Daniel looked sober and clear-eyed, and there was pride in his face as he placed Flora's hand in Quinn's. Reverend Thomas spoke about love and commitment, about weathering storms together, about faith and hope. Quinn barely heard the words, too focused on Flora's face, on the way the sunlight caught in her hair, on the joy and love shining in her green eyes. When it came time for vows, Quinn spoke from the heart. "Flora, I promise to love you every day of my life. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes. I promise to cherish you, to protect you, to make you laugh when I can and hold you when I cannot. You are my blessing, my hope, my home." Flora's voice shook with emotion as she spoke her own vows. "Quinn, you came into my life when I thought I was past hoping for anything good. You saw me, really saw me, and you loved me anyway. I promise to love you with everything I have, to build a life with you, to face whatever comes with courage because I know you will be beside me. You are my answered prayer." They exchanged simple gold bands that Quinn had purchased in Las Animas, and when Reverend Thomas pronounced them husband and wife, Quinn kissed Flora to the sound of applause and cheers from the small crowd. The celebration afterward was modest but joyful. People brought food to share, and someone had a fiddle. There was dancing and laughter, and for a few hours it was easy to forget the hardships of frontier life and just enjoy the moment. As the sun began to set, people started heading back to town. Marcus Henderson approached the newlyweds before leaving. "Mrs. Everett," he said, tipping his hat to Flora, "you make a beautiful bride." "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," Flora replied. Henderson turned to Quinn. "I have a proposition for you. I know you have been doing odd jobs, but I could use a good hand at the ranch. The pay is steady, and I can offer you a small house on the property. It is not much, but it is better than that lean-to you have been sleeping in." Quinn looked at Flora, who nodded slightly. "That is a generous offer, Mr. Henderson, but Flora's father is here, and the land modest as it is." "Bring him along," Henderson said, surprising them both. "I need someone to help with repairs around the place, general maintenance. If Daniel Hartley is willing to stay sober and work, I will give him a job too. The pay would not be much, but it would be steady." Daniel, who had been standing nearby, stepped forward. "You would hire me, even knowing what I am." "I am willing to give you a chance," Henderson said. "But only one chance. If you show up drunk, you are out. No second chances, no excuses." Daniel looked at Flora and Quinn, then back at Henderson. "I will take the job, and I will stay sober. I have wasted enough of my life, enough of my daughter's life. It is time to make things right." "Then we are agreed," Henderson said. He shook hands with all three of them. "Come by the ranch in 2 days, and we will get you settled." After everyone had left, Quinn and Flora stood alone in their valley of wildflowers, married and beginning their new life together. "Can you believe all that just happened?" Flora asked, leaning against Quinn's chest. "Honestly, no," Quinn admitted, wrapping his arms around her. "A month ago I was drifting with no purpose. Now I have a wife, a home, a job, a future. It is almost too much to take in. Are you happy?" Flora asked softly. Quinn turned her to face him. "I have never been happier in my entire life. You are everything I ever wanted but did not know I was looking for." "I love you," Flora said, the words coming easily now. "I love you too," Quinn replied. "And I am going to spend the rest of my life proving it to you." They moved to the rocking H 2 days later. The house Henderson provided was small but sturdy, with 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, and glass in all the windows. It was a palace compared to the cabin. Daniel was given a room in the bunkhouse with the other ranch hands, and true to his word, he stayed sober and showed up for work every day. The first few months of marriage were a period of adjustment. Quinn worked long days on the ranch, learning the rhythms of cattle work, branding, and range management. Flora took on cooking and cleaning duties at the main house, helping Henderson's elderly housekeeper who was struggling with arthritis. In the evenings, they would sit together on the porch of their little house, watching the sun set over the Colorado plains, talking about their days, making plans for the future. "I want children," Flora said one evening about 4 months after their wedding. "I want to fill this house with life and laughter." "How many children?" Quinn asked, smiling. "As many as God sees fit to give us," Flora replied. "I grew up with a brother, and even though he was taken from me too soon, I loved having a sibling. I do not want our children to be lonely." "Then we will have as many as you want," Quinn agreed, pulling her close. Their first child came the following spring, a son they named Samuel after Flora's lost brother. He was born healthy and strong, with his mother's green eyes and his father's dark hair. Quinn had never experienced fear like he did during Flora's labor, pacing outside while the midwife worked inside. But when he was finally allowed in and saw Flora holding their son, exhausted but radiant, he fell in love with her all over again. Daniel, now over a year sober, wept when he held his grandson. "Another Samuel," he said softly. "A new beginning." Samuel was followed 2 years later by a daughter they named Evelyn after Flora's mother. She was tiny and perfect, with blonde hair and her father's smile. Then came another son, Thomas, named for the reverend who had married them, and finally another daughter, Rose, named for the wildflowers that had brought her parents together. Life on the ranch was not always easy. There were droughts and hard winters, sick cattle and injured horses, days when money was tight and worries ran high. But through it all, Quinn and Flora faced everything together. their love growing stronger with each challenge overcome. Daniel continued to thrive in his sobriety. He became a valued member of the ranch crew, known for his skill with repairs and his steady temperament. He was deeply involved in his grandchildren's lives, telling them stories of Missouri and teaching them practical skills. The haunted look that had once dominated his face was replaced with peace and purpose. Marcus Henderson, gruff as he could be, developed a soft spot for the Everett children. He would slip them peppermint candy when their parents were not looking and let them visit the new foals in the stable. When Samuel was 10, Henderson taught him to ride properly, and when Evelyn was 7, he gave her a gentle mare for her very own. The Wildflower Valley remained a special place for Quinn and Flora. Every year on their anniversary, they would ride out there, just the two of them, and spend a few hours among the blooms. They would pray together, thanking God for their blessings, for their children, for their life together. "You remember the day we met?" Flora asked on their 10th anniversary, lying in the grass beside Quinn with flowers all around them. "Every detail," Quinn replied. "The way the wind was blowing, the color of your dress, the way you looked up at me with those green eyes. I knew right then that my life was about to change." "I thought you were crazy," Flora admitted with a laugh. "This strange cowboy who wanted to help me for no reason. I could not understand why." "I saw a woman praying over wildflowers," Quinn said, "and I knew she was my blessing too. I did not understand it at the time, could not have explained it, but I knew it in my soul. You were what I had been searching for." Flora rolled onto her side to look at him. "You saved me, you know, not just from the hard life I was living, but from losing hope entirely. I was so close to believing that nothing good would ever happen again. And then you appeared, like an answer to a prayer I had not even finished praying." "We saved each other," Quinn said, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "I was drifting, lost, going through the motions of living without really being alive. You gave me a purpose, a home, a reason to wake up every morning grateful." "I love you so much," Flora whispered. "More now than I did when we married, and I did not think that was possible." "I know what you mean," Quinn said. "Every year, every day I find new reasons to love you. The way you sing to the children at bedtime. The way you handle crisis with calm determination. The way you still pray among wildflowers. The way you forgave your father and gave him the chance to be the man he wanted to be." They kissed then, sweet and familiar and still thrilling after a decade together. As the years passed, the Everett children grew. Samuel became a skilled rancher, learning everything he could from his father and grandfather. At 18, he began courting a girl from Las Animas, the daughter of the blacksmith, and Quinn saw in his son's eyes the same look he had had when he first met Flora. Evelyn grew into a beautiful young woman with her mother's compassion and her father's steady nature. She had a gift with horses and could calm even the most skittish animal. She dreamed of having a ranch of her own someday, a progressive idea that Quinn and Flora supported wholeheartedly. Thomas was the scholar of the family, always reading when he could get his hands on books. He talked about becoming a teacher or maybe even a lawyer. Rose, the youngest, was wild and free, always exploring, always asking questions, keeping her parents on their toes. Daniel Hartley passed away peacefully in his sleep when Rose was 12. He was 70 years old and had been sober for nearly 15 years. His funeral was well attended, and many people spoke of how he had turned his life around, how he had become a man of integrity and value. Flora grieved but also felt peace. "He died as the father I remembered from my childhood," she told Quinn the night of the funeral. "Not as the broken man I cared for all those years. He found his way back to himself. That is all I ever wanted for him." Quinn held her as she cried. grateful that she had been able to have those years with her father, that Daniel had been able to know his grandchildren, and see the life Flora had built. Marcus Henderson retired when he was 65, and to everyone's surprise, he offered to sell the ranch to Quinn at a price he could afford with payments over time. "You have been more than an employee," Henderson said. "You have been a partner in all but name. This place should be yours." Quinn and Flora talked long into the night about the offer. It was a huge responsibility, a significant debt, but it was also an opportunity to build something lasting for their children. "What do you think?" Quinn asked Flora. "I think we should do it," she said. "We have built a good life here. Our children know this place. Samuel wants to stay and work the ranch. This could be our legacy." So Quinn accepted Henderson's offer, and the Rocking H became the Everett Ranch. They kept most of the workers, maintained the high standards Henderson had established, and slowly put their own stamp on the place. Flora started a garden that became the envy of the county, growing vegetables and herbs and, of course, wildflowers. The Wildflower Valley, which was technically part of the ranch property now, was left untouched. Quinn and Flora made it clear to everyone that no cattle were to graze there, no development was to happen there. It remained a sanctuary, a place of beauty and peace. When Samuel married his blacksmith's daughter, a lovely young woman named Catherine, they held the wedding in the Wildflower Valley, just as his parents had done. It was a tradition that continued with each of the Everett children, all of them eventually marrying in that sacred space. Quinn and Flora grew old together, their love a steady constant through all the changes and challenges of life. They watched their children marry and have children of their own, filling the ranch with the sound of young voices and laughter. On their 40th anniversary, Quinn and Flora rode out to the Wildflower Valley one more time. They were both in their 60s now, their hair gray, their hands gnarled from decades of work. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the young man and woman who had met among these flowers so many years before. 40 years, Flora said wonderingly. "Where did the time go?" "I have no idea," Quinn admitted, "but I would not change a single day of it, not even the hard days." Flora asked, "The winters when we did not know if we would make it, the times when children were sick or money was short." "Not even those," Quinn said firmly, "because we faced them together and they made us stronger. Every challenge we overcame made me more certain that marrying you was the best decision I ever made." Flora leaned against him, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the wildflowers sway in the breeze. "You remember what you said to me the day we met?" Flora asked. "You said these flowers reminded you that beauty can grow in hard places." "That was you who said that," Quinn corrected gently. "Oh, was it?" Flora laughed. "I suppose my memory is not what it used to be." "Neither is mine," Quinn admitted, "but I remember the important things. I remember loving you. I remember building a life with you. I remember every moment that mattered." "That is all any of us can hope for," Flora said, "to remember what matters." They stayed there until the sun began to set, two old lovers among the wildflowers, their hands clasped together, their hearts still as intertwined as they had been on the day they married. Quinn lived to see his 72nd birthday. He died as he had lived, peacefully and surrounded by love. His children and grandchildren gathered at his bedside, and Flora held his hand as he slipped away. "I will see you again," she whispered. "When my time comes, I will find you among the wildflowers." Quinn smiled and squeezed her hand one last time. "I will be waiting," he promised. "Always waiting for you." Flora lived another 5 years, spending them surrounded by family, helping to raise grandchildren and even a few great-grandchildren. She still visited the Wildflower Valley regularly, sometimes alone, sometimes with family members who wanted to hear the story of how their grandparents met. The story became legend in Bent County, the tale of the drifting cowboy who saw a woman praying over wildflowers and knew she was his blessing too. It was a story about love and faith, about second chances and redemption, about the beauty that can grow even in the hardest places. When Flora's time came, she went peacefully in her sleep, a smile on her face. The family buried her beside Quinn on a hill overlooking the Wildflower Valley, and every spring, wildflowers grew on both their graves, as if nature itself was honoring their love story. Samuel, now the patriarch of the Everett family, made sure the Wildflower Valley remained protected. He passed the story down to his children and grandchildren, teaching them about the power of love, the importance of faith, and the blessings that can come when you are open to seeing them. The Everett Ranch thrived for generations, but the Wildflower Valley remained unchanged, a testament to two people who found each other against all odds and built a love that lasted beyond their lifetimes. People from all over the county would come to see it, especially in spring when the flowers were at their peak, and they would leave feeling hopeful, as if the love that began there still lingered in the air. And sometimes, on particularly beautiful spring evenings when the sun cast golden light across the valley, and the flowers swayed gently in the breeze, people swore they could see two figures among the blooms, a man and a woman, hands clasped together, looking at each other with love that transcended time itself. The story of Quinn and Flora Everett became more than just family history. It became a beacon of hope for anyone struggling, anyone doubting, anyone wondering if love and redemption were really possible. It proved that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as chance encounters, as strangers kneeling in prayer, as wildflowers growing in unlikely places. Their great-grandson, another Quinn, inherited the ranch when he was 30. He had grown up hearing the stories, visiting the valley, feeling the weight of his family's legacy. When he married his own wife, a schoolteacher named Margaret, they continued the tradition of weddings in the Wildflower Valley. On the day of his wedding, as Quinn stood waiting for his bride, he felt a presence, warm and comforting. He looked around the valley, at the flowers his great-grandmother had loved so much, and he could have sworn he felt his great-grandfather's hand on his shoulder, giving him the same blessing he had received so many years ago. The Everett legacy continued to grow, branching out but always coming back to the ranch, to the valley, to the story of how it all began. Some family members became ranchers like their ancestors. Others became teachers, doctors, lawyers, shopkeepers. But all of them carried the story with them, the reminder that love could transform lives, that faith could sustain through the hardest times, that beauty could grow anywhere if you were willing to nurture it. The ranch itself became known throughout Colorado for its quality cattle and its commitment to ethical practices. The Everetts were fair employers, honest dealers, and active members of their community. They built a legacy not just of land and livestock, but of integrity and kindness. The Wildflower Valley became a symbol not just for the Everett family, but for the entire region. It represented hope and renewal, love and commitment. Young couples would come to walk through it before their weddings, hoping some of the Everett magic would bless their unions too. Grieving people would come to find peace among the flowers. Lost souls would come seeking direction, and the flowers kept blooming year after year, season after season, as faithful as the love they represented. The town of Las Animas grew over the decades, transforming from a dusty frontier settlement into a proper town with schools and churches and businesses. But the story of Quinn and Flora Everett remained a touchstone, a reminder of the town's history and the values it was built on. A historical society eventually formed, and one of their first projects was documenting the Everett story. They interviewed family members, gathered photographs and documents, and created a display in the town library. The display included Flora's wedding dress, carefully preserved over the years, and Quinn's worn leather saddle. But the centerpiece was a painting of the Wildflower Valley, commissioned by one of the grandchildren, showing two young figures among the blooms, forever captured in that moment of first love. Every year on the anniversary of Quinn and Flora's wedding, the town held a celebration in the Wildflower Valley. Families would gather for picnics, children would run through the flowers, and the mayor would read aloud the story of the cowboy and the woman praying over wildflowers. It became a tradition that bound the community together, reminding everyone that love and faith and hope were not just pretty concepts but real forces that could change the world. The Everett Ranch remained in the family for over a century, each generation adding their own chapter to the story while honoring the foundation Quinn and Flora had laid. The house was expanded and modernized over the years, but one room remained unchanged, the small original house where Quinn and Flora had started their married life. It was preserved as a kind of shrine, filled with their belongings, their photographs, their story. School children would visit on field trips, wide-eyed as they heard the tale of love and transformation. They would see the humble beginnings and understand that great things could come from simple moments, that one decision, one act of faith, one willingness to see beauty in hard places could change not just individual lives but entire communities for generations. The legacy of Daniel Hartley's redemption was not forgotten either. His story became a powerful testimony about the possibility of change, about the importance of family support, about the reality that it was never too late to become the person you were meant to be. Support groups for those struggling with alcohol would sometimes meet in Las Animas and visit Daniel's grave, finding inspiration in his story of 15 years of sobriety and meaningful work. As the 20th century dawned and then progressed, the world changed dramatically. Wars were fought, technologies advanced, society transformed. But the Wildflower Valley remained, and the story of Quinn and Flora Everett remained, a constant in a changing world, proof that some truths are eternal. Love endures. Faith sustains. Hope renews. Beauty grows in the hardest places. These were the lessons of Quinn and Flora's life, and they resonated across generations because they were not just pretty sentiments but lived truths, proven through decades of commitment and choice. Their story was not without difficulty. There had been droughts and debts, illnesses and injuries, disagreements and disappointments. But through it all, they had held to each other and to the faith that had brought them together in that Wildflower Valley. They had chosen love every day, in big moments and small ones, and that choice had created a legacy that outlasted their mortal lives. The wildflowers themselves seemed to understand their sacred duty. No matter what challenges the weather brought, they bloomed faithfully every spring. Botanists who studied the valley were amazed at the diversity and resilience of the flowers, unable to explain exactly why this particular piece of land was so uniquely blessed. But the Everett family knew. They knew it was because this ground had been consecrated by prayer, by love, by tears of joy and sorrow. This was holy ground, not in a religious sense necessarily, but in the sense that it had been the site of transformation, of miracle, of blessing upon blessing. As the years turned into decades and the decades into a century, the story of Quinn and Flora became somewhat legendary, taking on an almost mythical quality. Some details were probably embellished over time, others perhaps forgotten. But the core of the story remained true. A lonely cowboy saw a woman praying among wildflowers and recognized in her his own blessing, his answered prayer, his home. And that truth, that beautiful, simple truth, continued to inspire and encourage, to comfort and challenge, long after the last person who had known Quinn and Flora personally had passed away. Their love story became timeless, a gift to all who heard it, proof that in a harsh world, in a wild and unforgiving land, love could not only survive but thrive, blooming like wildflowers in the most unlikely places, beautiful and enduring and full of grace. The end.